Hello and welcome to the third video in our UbD for Current Technical Education series. In our previous videos, we had gone through and worked on stage one, which is where we identified our enduring understandings and essential questions. We used our established goals, in this case in the New Hampshire Department of Education, to inform what we're going to be teaching students. And then we took those and put them into kind of real world terms and really thought about what do they mean, what does our experience tell us they mean, and what do we want to focus on. Now, a UbD purist is going to probably take these established goals and build their units from that. And some people may be questioning why I did not do that. And the reason, fairly simple, is these state standards are not necessarily very well written. For one thing is they use very low levels of knowledge. It is generally identify, which is not a high way of demonstrating knowledge. In terms of depth of knowledge, it's pretty low. We do get to demonstrate down here, but again, I think we have a little bit higher aspiration for our students. Also, they have things in here which, again, based on my teaching experience, I do not think should be taught at the same time. For example, lighting. Lighting is really its own unit. We will cover lighting. We're not going to ignore that knowledge standard, but we're not going to do it at the same time we're trying to teach students all of the camera operations. Same thing with adapters. Adapters just make more sense when we're in the audio unit. So again, I'm not ignoring or not using these standards here, but I am choosing to incorporate them in a different unit and not the one we're working on today. So this unit is about the basic camera operations, and we have identified some of the things we want students to be able to know. Now, here's the big question: how are we going to know that they know it? How are we going to evaluate whether or not the students have met these standards we're looking for? And that is going to come through some form of assessment. And UbD divides assessment into two types: performance tasks, which are things which students do, and other evidence, which could be things such as instructor observation. I would say that things such as quizzes and tests would go under other evidence as well. The performance task piece is a big concept within UbD, that you want students to be doing authentic performance-based assessments where they are assuming a role and a role which has purpose. And in a later tutorial, we may go through the GRASP concept, which is a way which you can actually really focus in on the performance element of it. But for today, we're not going to go through that. We're just going to kind of work on what goes into this area. And so I'm going to start by removing my fillers here. And the thing I want to start with are what are my evaluative criteria? And this is something which throws people. And in fact, I see this area deleted frequently in UbD templates I find online because I think it does confuse people. But the evaluative criteria is, if you were evaluating, judging, grading the student work, what would you be looking for? And on the most basic level, it's this idea right here. Now, if we were to do a direct one-to-one correlation, the evaluative criteria would be a student can identify a tripod. I think we are looking for something a little bit more high-end than that. So one of my evaluative criteria, which I would have in this assignment, is that student can select appropriate equipment given a particular scenario. A second evaluative criteria I might have is that student can demonstrate use and purpose of equipment, scheduling and sign out. That is a huge thing in industry. It's a huge thing when you're in college to be able to actually plan for what you're going to use and be able to sign it out. Then we're going to get into some of the actual more operational parts of it. That an evaluative criteria is student can produce image that is in focus and properly exposed using available light, because again, we were not getting into the lighting piece. I need to scroll that up so you can see that. And another evaluative criteria is student can secure camera on tripod, and tripod is level. Student can explain, I'm not going for identify, I'm going to actually explain it, explain differences between professional and consumer video equipment. And there could be many more standards. If you are in a engineering class, you might have a standard which could be, student will produce blueprinted design within 3% tolerance. If you're in culinary class, you may have a standard which is, if there's a unit on baking, you might have what are the characteristics of a properly created, properly baked loaf of bread. Is it gooey in the middle? Is it light and fluffy? What is the color of it? So that is what the evaluative criteria are. And in some cases, an outside party may actually define those for you. Those of you who have strong industry connections, hospitality, healthcare, the evaluative criteria might, for a particular unit, might be very much spelled out for you. Student can successfully take blood pressure on a patient using a manual cuff. So how am I going to judge, evaluate in this unit that these students are actually able to meet this criteria? Well, I might have a performance task, which is, and this is more of you're describing an actual assignment you might give a student. That's what this assessment evidence is. It's assignments and it's assessments which you're giving the students. So one of my performance tasks might be photo collage. Student uses still camera to photograph 10 unique images which display purpose and are within acceptable technical parameters. And I might have another performance task. So maybe there's two things in this unit. It might be a simple process video. Student uses video camera to create 1-minute video using various camera angles and controls that displays meaning and again acceptable technical parameters. And I am not getting into a ton of detail with this because what I would actually do is somewhere I have an assignment which is a photo collage assignment. And the photo collage assignment is going to explain this in much more detail, is going to provide the students some more specific evaluative criteria. Again, this is the UbD template is in many ways a teacher-to-teacher document and an internal planning document. You're going to spell this out in more concrete terms for students. But I have two performance tasks which are related to this. Now, other evidence I might need to show the students are meeting these evaluative criteria would be a, whoops, written camera operations quiz. There's some other evidence I would have which would talk about this. I might also have a hands-on camera operations test. And that would be, if I want to see if a student can put a camera on a tripod correctly before I let them out in the field to drop it, I need to actually check them out and watch them do that. And a third piece of evidence I might have, which is, again, you can make an argument that some of these could go under performance task, but I'm going to put them under other evidence, is going to be a select a camera activity, which is basically a type of a homework assignment they're doing where they have to select a camera given a particular budget which would meet a particular need. And what if you are a really planful person, you will eventually have this stuff stored online. You will potentially hyperlink this to documents. You know, you can select it and you can actually insert a link so it could link to another file somewhere online. But those are things to do down the road. Those are, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have those? Now, certainly, after I've looked at this for a day, I'm sure I'll come back and say, you know what, I want to reword my photo collage. This isn't really capturing the essence of what I'm doing. I may decide that there's some other evidence which I think is important in here. I'd also encourage you to have these are kind of the bigger tasks. I would not necessarily put in every little tiny homework assignment in here. But these are the big things. And these are nice because these are very all-encompassing. The photo collage is going to require students to choose a camera, use it with a purpose, and select the appropriate equipment. And then what factors might a person consider when selecting equipment for a particular job? When they do that select a camera activity, this is a written assignment, they're going to have to select a camera with a purpose and kind of justify why they did it. So I'm also going to hit on some writing standards there as well. So this is what stage 2 of evidence is about. It's about what are the criteria we want students to meet. Again, images in focus, properly exposed, camera secure on tripod. Think about what that would mean in your term. What does success look like? Sometimes I will equate this to being a column 4 in a rubric, which is that standard when a kid is really getting it. And the assessment evidence is, how am I measuring it? Am I doing it through a performance task? Am I doing it through other types of evidence? So I hope you have been able to gain something from this. And on our next and last video in this series, we will look at stage 3, which is the learning plan.